Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can all of you hear me?
जी
जी शेख साहब अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa rawadathu allati huwa fi baytiha an nafsihi wa ghallaqat al-abwab wa qalat hayta lak. Qala ma'azallah innahu rabbi ahsana maswaya innahu la yuflihu az-zalimun. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. So inshallah we'll continue with this Surah Yusuf. Last class we were discussing this episode that took place where Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam was in the house of the ruler of Egypt, and the wife, whose name was Zulekha, she locked the door and she tried to seduce Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam towards herself. And in response, Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam said that, Ma'azallah, I seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innahu Rabbi ahsana maswaya. And surely your husband, he is my master, he is my caretaker, he is my guardian, that he has kept me here in this house and he has kept me well in this house. So from here, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, he is in his speech, he is talking to Zulekha, and he is not giving some shari or a religious proof that why is it that I cannot commit this sin of zina with you. So for example, he's not saying that I cannot commit this sin because this sin is haram in the Sharia. And the reason is because he understands that this woman, at this moment, she is overwhelmed by her emotions. So even if I were to speak about the rules of the Sharia and Islam and the law, then she will not be able to understand that. So hence, what Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam does here in this instance is that he tries to speak to her rationally and using just common sense. He's trying to explain to her that what you are calling me to do is wrong. This goes against common sense, common reason. And the reason that he's giving is that, look, that man who brought me in his home and gave me such a good house, such good care, kept me so well, gave me so much love and care and comfort, how can I be disloyal to him? How can I be disloyal to your husband and commit this sin with you? How can I ignore the favors that your husband has done upon me? I have to be loyal. This is that feeling of loyalty, that quality of loyalty that Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam had. And this is what our Shariat teaches us, that hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al ihsan, that when someone does a favor upon you, you return the favor. So if someone does some good deed to you, they take care of you, they keep you well, they give you a home, a lodging, a place, a shelter. So you should also do good to them, be loyal to them. Be grateful to them. This is the beauty of the deen of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, Man lam yashkurin nas, lam yashkurillah. That whoever is not grateful to people, that person will not be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So the Shariat teaches us that we need to be grateful to people as well. Be appreciative about the good things that they do for us. And when someone does good to you, you should try to repay that favor. And if you don't have the ability to do any good to them, then faman zakarahu faqad shakara. Just mention that this person did such a good thing to me, and this would become the badla. This would become your show, the expression of your gratitude for that favor that was done to you. And even if you just mention the good that others do, that alone would also count as shukr. So this is a particularly important lesson and something that we should try to implement in our life. Be grateful to people, especially those who do good towards us. Be loyal towards them, and we see that even if someone who does the favor upon you is a non-believer, non-Muslim, still you should acknowledge the favor that they have done for you. And then you should try to repay that favor, even if the person is a non-Muslim. So, for example, we find so many stories in the Surah where the Prophet ﷺ, he would repay in kindness to those who were even non-Muslims, but they showed some favor towards the Prophet ﷺ. So, for example, there comes a story that there was one leader of the Quraysh whose name was Mut'am bin Adi. And he had done a lot of favors upon the Prophet ﷺ. One favor was that when the Prophet ﷺ, there was a boycott and they were placed in this valley, Shu'bi Abi Talib, and they were there for 2 years. So he was the one who spoke to the other leaders of Quraysh and then tried to bring the Prophet ﷺ out of that boycott. And the second favor he did was that when the Prophet ﷺ went to Taif, and on the way back from Taif, when the people of Makkah Mukarramah, they refused to allow the Prophet ﷺ to enter their city, at that time, this Mut'am, he took upon himself this responsibility to provide sanctuary and security to the Prophet ﷺ in the city of Makkah Mukarramah. So then later on, what happened? How did the Prophet ﷺ repay this favor? We see that during the Battle of Badr, when the Muslims, they won, and there were many leaders of Quraysh who were captured, imprisoned. So there were 70, about roughly 70 of them. So the people in Makkah Mukarramah, they were thinking that how can we go to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him to set free our captives? And this was a time when Mut'am had already passed away. He had a son whose name was Jubair bin Mut'am. So the Quraysh in Makkah, they nominated him that why don't you go? We want you to go and speak to the Prophet ﷺ, and then ask him, request him to release our prisoners. So when the son of Mut'am, Jubair, when he went up to the Prophet ﷺ with that request, to release the prisoners, the Prophet ﷺ replied and said that لَوْ كَانَ مُطْعَمٌ حَيًّا, that today if your father Mut'am was alive and he would have come and asked me about these prisoners, then la taraktuhum lahu, I would have released these prisoners for his sake. So we see that even though he was a non-Muslim, but when he did favor ihsan upon the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ repaid that favor. Hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al ihsan, that you repay the favor of someone who does a favor upon you. You be grateful to them, be loyal to them. So this is what Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam did. This is a quality. This is a blessing from Allah to be blessed with this quality of loyalty. So he says here that how can I commit this sin with you? Your husband, he has kept me so well, so comfortably in this place. And if I do so, then I will be disloyal. I will be doing zulm. I will be oppressing my own self. And innahu la yuflihu dhalimun, Allah does not give success to those who do zulm. I will never be successful in my life if I do this. Then the story continues. What happened was that Zulaykha, when she heard this reply, she did not desist, but rather she continued, she advanced further. And in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ, that she certainly desired him, and she desired Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, وَهَمَّ بِهَا, and he might have desired her, لَوْلَا أَرَّأَ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّ, had he not seen the proof from his Lord. Now this is another very famous ayat of this Quran, which is often an exam point. This is an ayat which normally it's a good point for examining students, that what does this ayat mean? So we see here that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, and the point is that what did Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam see? Like the ayat mentioned that had he not seen the proof from his Lord, what was that proof that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam saw, and then he desisted from this? So some Mufassirin have written that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he saw the face of his father, Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. He was made to see the face of his father, and at that time when he saw the face, he remembered that Yusuf, he reminded himself that Yusuf, you are the son of Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam, and he had given you this glad tiding that you will be a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is not something that you're supposed to engage in. So when he saw the Burhan, this proof, he remained firm on his stance that I cannot commit this sin. Some other Mufassirin have written that here the proof refers to the ilm, the knowledge, the wisdom, the hikmat that Allah Ta'ala had given to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, because of which he had yaqeen, certainty on the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had haqqul yaqeen. And that is why he said no to this amal, to the advances of the woman. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he had this haqqul yaqeen, certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at me. He is with me, and that is why immediately he was able to say, Ma'azallah, that I seek refuge in Allah. The other point to remember is that some people say that the woman, she desired Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, Hamma, and Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam also might have had a desire for that woman, because the word Hamma is again used. So the word is repeated. So the point to understand here is that, let's say, if a person hits someone else with his hand, and in reply, the other person also lifts his hand, but not to hit the other person in return, but rather to defend himself. So an onlooker would look at both of their actions and say that the action is the same. This person raised his hand, the other person also raised his hand. But this person raised his hand in order to hit, and that person raised his hand in order to defend, in order to save himself. And this is why in this ayat, the word Hamma is used for both, but there is a difference. That the woman, she raised her hand in order to advance and commit the sin. And Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam raised his hand in order to defend himself, to stop her advances. But the word Hamma is used here, and the Hamma is used there as well, same word. But there is a farak, there is a difference. The word, there's another difference. If you look at the ayah, that for the woman, when the word Hamma, desire, is used, there is laqad before that. Laqad is emphasis. In fact, lam is for one emphasis, qad is for another emphasis. There is double emphasis, double ta'keed. Walaqad hammat bihi, that she certainly, surely desired him. So this means that the woman, her intention was solid, double solid, that I have to do this. But the word, when it is used for Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, it just simply says, Wahamma biha. Wahamma biha. There is no ta'keed or emphasis before the word. So just the style of the Quran is telling us, the style of speech is telling us that there is a difference between the two ham. There's a difference between the way in these two words are to be understood. كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. And thus, now this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, thus in this way, we turn evil and vulgarity away from Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. We did this so that we can turn away vulgarity, obscenity, lewdness away from Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So in this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is relating this action to his own self. That we did this so that we wanted to remove vulgarity away from Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Means that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam did not have any intention of committing this sin. So very simple, that me and you, we do good deeds, but we also sometimes commit sins. But the awliya of Allah Ta'ala, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah protects them from sins. Allah saves them from sins. But the Anbiya Ikram, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not even allows them to go near sin, not even allows sins to come near them. This is the shan of Nabuwat. They are masoom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself turns away sins and obscenities away from the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. Doesn't allow the sins to reach the Anbiya alayhi salam. So in this way, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are masoom. They don't commit sin, they're sin-free. Innahu min ibadina al-mukhlasin. And surely, Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam, he was one of our chosen servants. He had ikhlas, sincere servants. He did not have any intention of committing sin. And hence he saved himself. He made effort to save himself. This is another really important principle to remember, that whoever has a good intention, a pious intention, like in this case, in Yusuf al-Islam, he had the intention to save himself. So whenever a person has a good, a pious intention, then surely that person will receive help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will protect that person. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi has mentioned that when a person attains the pleasure, the rida of Allah, and to attain the pleasure of Allah, they become sincere. Sincerity in their intention, sincerity in their deeds. Then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves that person from fitna, from trials and tribulations, and Allah saves that person from shar. So this is one point to keep in our mind, that if our intentions are pious and sincere, then Allah's help will come to us. Ye pakki baat hai. This is etched in stone, that whoever has good intentions, good in the sense of dini, pious intentions, then Allah will protect that person. No one can harm that person. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ وَقَدَّتْ كَمِيسَهُ مِنْ دُبُرٍ وَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. That وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ, that they raced towards the door. When the woman, Zulaykha, she advanced towards Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam to commit this sin, in response, Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam, he fled. He tried to flee. He raced towards the door. Now we know, because in the previous ayat it was mentioned, that the door was closed, it was bolted. But despite that, Hazrat Yusuf al-Islam is now racing towards in the direction of the door. Why? Because Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam knew that even though the door is closed, my task, my responsibility is just to make use of the worldly means and run in the direction of the door. And it's the job of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open the door for me. My task is simply to save myself from sin, to run away from this place of sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help me. And He is the one, He is the being who can open the doors for me, who can open closed doors for me. And for this reason, Sayyidina Yusuf al-Islam, he races towards the door. So from here we get another lesson, that whenever a person is faced with any fitna, any opportunity for sin, we should try to run away from that place. Try to flee that place. Sometimes young people, they say that, no, my friends are bad, I was just there, I was just listening, I didn't do anything. So any person who says like that I was just there to listen to my friends, I wasn't doing anything. So this is deception. Because when you listen, then eventually you will end up doing it as well. So the only way to save yourself from evil, from sin, is to just leave that place. When people say that I have a friend, he took me to the bar, I wasn't drinking, my friend was drinking only. I was just there with my friend to give him company. Well, this is deception because it's only a matter of time that shaitan and nafs will tempt a person, and eventually a person will end up committing that sin as well. They might end up drinking. So the only guaranteed way to save ourselves from temptations and sins and fitna is to leave that place. This is called firarum min al fitan. So if we feel like that in our interactions with some people, so we should try to flee from that place. If someone is inviting us towards sin, so they're calling us on the phone, SMSing, emailing, and we know that this is wrong, they're inviting me towards sinful activity. So then the way to save ourselves is not that we continue talking and see and think that I can say I'm strong enough to save myself. No. The way to save ourselves is that we just separate, we flee from that place. And for this reason, when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he raced away from that place. So this is the lesson for us as well, that we should also try to leave such places of sin the way Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam left it. Because in reality, we have to make effort. The results are in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we should also make dua to Allah ta'ala, that Allah, we made effort, but Allah, it's you who can save ourselves. It's you who can save us. وَقَدَّتْ قَمِيصَهُ مِنْ دُبُرٍ. And the woman, she ripped the shirt of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam from behind. And when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he raced towards the door, so the woman, she followed. And she grabbed hold of the shirt from behind, and in this way she ripped the shirt. So the scholars have written that even though the outward dress of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was ripped by that woman, but he was able to secure the libas of taqwa. That libas of piety and taqwa remained intact. So such a beautiful transaction, that you allow the zahiri dress to be ripped, but in return you are able to keep your dress of taqwa intact. And then the ayat continues, وَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. And they found her master by the door. Sayyid here means Malik, like a master. And the ruler, he was in one sense the master of both of them. He was the master of he was the master of the woman, because he was the husband. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was a free person. So was Sayyidaha. So what happened was that the husband, the ruler, he had opened the door from the other side. And when the door opened, both of them, they saw that the Aziz-e-Misr, the ruler, is standing there at the door. So then when the woman Zulekha, she saw her husband there at the door, she said, قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا. That what should be or what could be the punishment of that person, of him who intends evil with your wife. Illa an yusjana, except that that person be imprisoned, aw adabun alim, or that person be given a very painful punishment. Now this was the cleverness of Zulekha, very cunning woman, that when she saw her husband standing at the door, her tone changed completely. Her demeanor changed, her speech changes. A few minutes before, she is seducing Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Hay talak, she's advancing. And now when she sees her husband standing at the door, so now she is saying here that ma jaza'u man arada bi ahlika su'an. That what should be the punishment of that person who intends sin with your wife. And now she's putting all the blame on Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So we should remember that this is the sign of nafsani, shaitani love. That this type of love has what we called khud gharzi. Yani a person is self-centered. This fake metaphorical love, nafsani love, shaitani love, in such a love, a person is very self-centered. All they care about is their own self. All they care about is just fulfilling their desire. Yani they're not, when something happens, the man says, no, that she called me. And the woman says, no, 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 he called me. And no one is willing to take the responsibility. They're just trying to save themselves, put the whole blame on the other individual. This is the outcome of such false nafsani love. And this is exactly what this woman did, that she herself was calling Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. And now she is saying that what should be the punishment of this individual who wants to do sin with your wife. And look at the words. What should be the punishment of that person who intends evil with your wife? She's trying to instigate her husband. She's trying to incite her husband so that he feels that ghaira. That look, what is he doing with your wife? He's trying to awaken that ghaira of her husband by using such words. Very clever. And then she says, Yusjana aw adabun alim. There can be no other punishment except that we imprison him or we give him a very painful punishment. So the woman, she is suggesting two ways to deal with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. One is to imprison. Imprison is a long-term punishment. And second is adabun alim. This is a short-term, immediate punishment. So in other words, she is saying that give him both a long-term punishment and a short-term punishment. Qala. Now, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam responds, Hiya rawadatni an nafsi. It was she who tried to seduce me. Just one line clarifying his stance. Okay, now when the woman is talking that, let's give punishment to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So in reply, he just clarifies his position that no, not me. It was she who was trying to seduce me. So from here we understand that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he wanted to clarify the situation, and hence he pointed out this quality about that woman, that she was trying to seduce me. So the lesson that we learned here is, if a person anticipates that they will receive some let's say discomfort or some harm from another individual, then it is permissible to open the fault of that person. When there's someone who wants to provide harm to you, inflict harm, pain, suffering, so you can point out the intentions of that person, that this is what this person wants to do. But very careful. One should not do this in front of general public, but do it, and reveal the flaw, reveal the fault of that individual in front of someone who is an authority, who has the ability to make decision. It shouldn't be the case that you just public broadcasting on social media that, look, this person has these faults inside of him. This would be an insult. This would be humiliating that person, and this is not permissible in the Deen of Islam. That you broadcast their flaws and you insult that person in public. Okay, this person is our enemy and he does this. And the entire city doesn't need to know. The entire, with social media, one tweet and everyone knows. This is not adab. This is not appropriate. Rather, if you want to fix that wrong, you want to fix that flaw, you can mention it in front of someone who has the authority. And for this reason, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he was speaking to the ruler, the husband of that wife. So in front of that ruler, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam opens up the flaw of his wife and says, Hiya, she, rawadatni an nafsi, she was trying to seduce me. وَالشَّهِدَ شَاهِدٌ min ahliha. And a witness from her family, he gave testimony in favor of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. In favor of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, that yes, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam is innocent. He did not have any intention of committing the sin. Now, who was this person who gave this testimony? So in the Tafsir, it's mentioned that it was a young boy, an innocent boy. And we see this is the sunnat of Allah Ta'ala, that people who are innocent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the testimony of innocent children, and through them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expresses the innocence of those individuals. Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, when people slandered her, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he announced her chastity. And there also in that story, there was a child who gave testimony about the chastity of Sayyidina Maryam alayhi salam. Who was that child? The son, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. And that story was, all of you should be familiar, that when Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, she brought her child, a baby, home. So people were saying that, Ya Maryamu, lakad ji'ti shayyan fariya, that what have you done? Where did this child come from? They started giving tana, insults. Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki imra'a sawin, that your father was not a bad man. Your mother was not a bad woman. What have you done? And now the Maryam alayhi salam, she's apprehensive. Her own people are insulting her, are saying things. So eventually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to her that fa'asharat ilay. She just points towards her child. That just ask him, don't ask me, leave me. And then the people again say, this child, kayfa nukallimu man kana fil mahdi sabiyya? How can this child talk? He's a newborn. And at this point, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, he spoke that Inni Abdullah, I'm a servant of Allah. And in this way, through the tongue of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, who was a newborn baby, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala announced the purity of Sayyidina Maryam alayhi salam. So here in this story as well, there was a child in the home, in the house, and he testified to the innocence of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. And later on in the story, it comes that this child, when he would grow up, he would become a man. And this would be a time when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam would be the king of the whole country. And people would be coming to him for wheat. So this time, this child would now be a man, a young man. He would also come to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, and he would request for some wheat. And like whatever is the proportion that is being given out, this man would also be given his share. When he would receive his share, he would say, no, I want more. So he would be given a bit more. But then he would insist, I want even more. And then it would be said to him that we have already given you more than your share. Why are you insisting for more? And it would be said that if you want more, you should go speak to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So he would be brought before Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. He would say that, Hazrat, I want even more. And then Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam will ask that, he said that we have already given you so much more than the average, more than the normal. Why do you need more? And then the child says that, Hazrat, you don't know who I am. If you knew about me, if you knew my identity, you would definitely give me more wheat. So then Hazrat Yusuf asked him that, who are you? Introduce yourself. And he said that, Hazrat, I'm that same child who testified to your innocence when you were young, in that palace when that woman tried to seduce you. Now I've grown up, and now I've come to you requesting for wheat. So when Sayyidina Yusuf will hear this, he will become so happy that this was the child who testified to my innocence. So then he would issue the command that give him whatever he wants. And take all of this, carry this all the way back to his home, and he would be given a VIP treatment. So when that man would be taking his wheat, his share of wheat, and then going back, at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam that, oh my beloved Yusuf, you gave a lot of honor and respect to this child, to this man now. Why? And Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam replied that Allah, this man was that same person that when he was young, he gave testimony to my chastity. Now when he has come to me, I desire that I want to give him so much as I'm willing to, as much as I have the power to give to him, as much as I have the ability to give, I want to give it to him. And then in reply, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, oh my beloved Yusuf, I make you witness that this man who gave testimony to your innocence, when he comes to you, you want to give him as much as you can. That person who in this dunya testifies to my oneness, who testifies to my wahdaniyat, who believes in me, when this person will come to me on the day of Qiyamah and will ask from me, I will give to this person according to my own shan. This is the value of the kalima, kalima tawheed. It's a testimony. We testify to the oneness of Allah Ta'ala. Allah values this testimony so much that on the day of Qiyamah, Allah will say that now I will give this person as much as I can. In kana kamisuhu qudda min qubulin, and if the shirt was ripped from the front side, fasadaqat, then it means that the woman was true, wa huwa minal kadhibin. And Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was a liar. Na'udhu billah. Wa in kana qamisuhu qudda min duburin, and if his shirt was ripped from behind, fakazabat, then she is telling a lie. Wa huwa minas sadiqin, and Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was telling the truth. He was truthful. Falamma ra'a qamisahu. So when the husband, he looked at the shirt. So this was the test. Now let's look at the shirt. He saw that qudda min duburin. It was ripped from behind. Qala. So he said, Innahu min kaidi kun, that this is certainly the trickery of the women. Inna kaida kunna adim. And the mischief, the deception, the trickery of the women is great indeed. Yani the fitna of women is indeed a very big fitna. For men. There are some things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called azim in the Quran. Rabbul Arshil Azim. The Arsh of Allah is Azim. Wa huwa al-Aliyyul Azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is Azim. Wa fadaynahu bizibhin Azim. The qurbani that we do on Eid, the sacrifice, that has been called Azim. وَجَاءُوا بِسِحْرٍ عَظِيمٍ. The magic that the magicians did in the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, that magic was Azim. وَالْقُرْآنِ الْعَظِيمِ. Quran is Azim. خُلُقٍ Azim. The noble character And the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ is azim. Azaba yawmin azim. The day on which azab will be given, that day is azim. Fadlullahi alayka azima. The fazl and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also azim. And inna kaida kunna azim, the trickery of women is also azim. Because when the intent is sin, then it becomes easy for men to be slipped by their trickery. It's viewed as one of the weaknesses of men. And shaitan sometimes uses this as a way to make men slip on this path, that he gets them involved in such unlawful relations with people of the opposite gender. So from here we understand another point, that there are two enemies that we have. One is our nafs, which is our inner enemy, our hidden enemy, and the other is called shaitan, which is our external enemy. Internal enemy, nafs. External enemy, shaitan. And both are treacherous. Both try to trick us, deceive us, dupe us. The difference is that in the Quran, Allah mentions that the deception of the nafs is azim, and the deception and the trickery and the planning, the plotting of shaitan is less. The plotting of nafs is more intense. The plotting of shaitan is comparatively less. So in Quran, Allah says about shaitan, inna kaida shaitani kana za'ifa, that the planning of shaitan is weak. But when the nafs is mentioned, Allah says, inna kaida kunna azim, that your planning and trickery is azim. So it means that nafs is a more dangerous enemy than shaitan. Nafs is a more dangerous enemy than shaitan. In fact, nafs, who made shaitan shaitan? Nafs made shaitan shaitan. Right? Now, after this dialogue, the Aziz-e-Misr, the ruler, he steps in and he says, he addresses Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, Yusufu a'ariz an haza. Ignore this matter. Ignore this matter. The Aziz-e-Misr, he wanted that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam just overlooks this matter. And the real reason was that he did not want this flaw or weakness of his wife to become public knowledge, that everyone starts speaking about his own wife. He wanted to, in other words, conceal the sin of his wife. Satar poshi, to conceal as opposed to reveal. This is a good quality, to conceal. In a hadith mubarakah it comes that man satara musliman, that whoever conceals the flaw of a person in this dunya, Allah will conceal that person's flaws in the dunya as well as akhirah. So we should have this quality, not just trying to always reveal everything about the person, but concealing. And then he said to his own wife, وَاسْتَغْفِرِي لِذَنْبِكَ, that, O woman, you seek forgiveness for your sin. إِنَّكِ كُنْتِ مِنَ الْخَاطِئِينَ, for surely you are the guilty one. Now, even though Zulaikha was not a Muslim, but she is being told to do istighfar. Why? Because in her own mind, she knew she had this distinction between what is right and what is wrong. She knew what is sin and what is a good deed. So that is right. That is why the husband is saying that you should do istighfar upon your sin. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, and the women in the city, they said that Imra'atul Aziz, that the wife of the minister, the wife of the ruler, turavidu fataha an nafsihi, that she is seducing her youthful servant towards herself. Qad shaghafaha hubba, his love has entered the depth of her heart. Inna lanaraha fi dhalalim mubin, and surely we see her in open error. Now, this is something to reflect here, that how did the women find out? How did the women in the city find out about this? Because up till now, in the previous ayat, we saw that there were only 3 people who knew about this episode, about this sin. Zulaikha, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, and Aziz Misr, the ruler. And all 3 were people of the house. So we cannot expect that any one of these 3 would have mentioned this to other people. They would have leaked the news. Right? It concerned these 3, they would have hidden this from other people. We cannot expect that they would have leaked this to people around them. Zulaikha cannot speak about this, wouldn't want to speak about this, because it was her own action, her own sin. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, how would he speak? How could he speak when the ruler had said that Yusuf, a'arizan haza, ignore this. So then Yusuf alayhi salam had that quality of loyalty, so he wouldn't want to be disloyal to his master, to his ruler, wouldn't want to embarrass the husband. And Aziz Misr himself, this was something which concerned him. It was his wife. So he wouldn't want to mention or reveal this flaw about his own wife to other people around him. So we learned that these 3, they wouldn't have leaked this news. So now the question comes that how did the women in the city find out about this? So the Mufassirin, they have written that the people who were working in the palace, in the home, they would notice, they would observe how Zulaikha would be advancing towards Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, her advances, her looks, her demeanor, her way of speaking, how she would be engaging, interacting with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So in their own mind, they would have some idea that something is fishy. Something is happening. And they started speaking among each other. And this is how the news got leaked out that something is happening, something is cooking. So from here, the Mufassirin have extracted another lesson, that one should be careful about their house servants. When people are talking with each other in the home, husband, wife, they should be careful that they're not being overheard by their servants. So, for example, husband, wife, they're talking about the rishta of their daughter. They're discussing some marriage proposal for their son. If they're doing it where the servants can overhear them, so the news will be leaked out. People will find out that this is what is happening. When people are planning in the home, let's do this. Two people are planning, but the news reaches out. Everyone in the whole family, extended family, knows about it. How? Because of the servants who were working there in the house. Many times, husband, wife, they have some issue, some dispute, some argument. It's a small thing, but if they're doing it in the presence of other people around in the home, then people are listening, and they might make it into a mountain, and people far away, they would know that this is happening in the house. So from here we learn that servants, they have a place in the home, but they shouldn't be everywhere. There should be some privacy where if a husband, wife, or other people, family people, they want to talk, they can talk at ease without this fear of being overheard by other people. Maids, servants, cooks, drivers, one has to be careful and maintain a sense of privacy, a sense of separation. Well, we ended the ruku here as well. The previous ayah. Let's keep it till here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability that we can implement these lessons in our life as well. Inshallah, we'll continue this next time. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.